The morning air over Apulia hangs heavy with dust and dread. Two Roman consuls march with the largest army the Republic has ever assembled, an avalanche of men and pride toward a general who crossed the Alps like a storm and refused to break. By the end of this day at Cannae, Rome will either crush Hannibal or watch the heart of its power torn open. Stay with me to the final moment, and you'll see exactly how one flexible formation, a chain of tight decisions, and a fatal rhythm of momentum turned the strongest infantry in the Mediterranean into a trap for itself. If you enjoy the history of Rome, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. It is 216 BCE. Hannibal Barca has already stunned the Republic at the Trebia and at Lake Trasimene, outmaneuvering Roman forces with speed, deception, and iron discipline. Now he holds the flat plains near the village of Cannae, close to the river Ophidus, where wind, dust, and open space favor a commander who lives on nobility and surprise. Facing him are the consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, alternating command by day. Their senate is impatient, their people frightened, their legions swollen with recruits and veteran confidence. The Republic wants a decisive victory. It will get one, just not the one it expects. Ancient witnesses like Polybius, precise and cool, and Livy, grand and moral, describe a Roman host, perhaps 80,000 strong with cavalry and support, against a smaller Carthaginian line in infantry, but stronger on horseback. Numbers vary, arguments persist, but the shape of the risk is clear. Rome trusts mass. Hannibal trusts geometry. Which survives the Apulian sun? Hannibal chooses the ground with a gambler's call. He keeps the Ophidus at his back and flank to constrain Roman maneuver and positions his men where a steady breeze might drive dust into Roman faces. Is the wind decisive? Not alone. Yet in a crush of men, a little grit in the eye and a little confusion in the ranks become thread and needle for a larger pattern. The Roman strength is the triplex aces, a checkerboard of maniples famous for grinding opponents down. Varro's day of command favors aggression. He compacts the formation unusually deep, a battering column meant to punch through Hannibal's middle like a ram through a gate. Ending the war with one overwhelming shove feels logical. But a gate can be bait. Across the field, Hannibal arranges an elastic line. In the center, he places Gauls and Iberians in a shallow convex bow, projecting forward like a deliberate swell of confidence. On the wings, he keeps his best: heavy cavalry under Hasdrubal on the left facing the Roman right, and the nimble Numidian horse on the right, dark riders who fight like smoke, and flint men who win by refusing the duel their enemy needs. Behind this arc, slightly refused, stand African infantry with long spears and discipline, their role simple and terrible. Hold, then bite, the horns sound. The Roman infantry rolls forward with a pressure that feels unstoppable. Shields thud, spears snap, breath shortens. The bulging Carthaginian center meets the push, gives ground by design, and bends. It does not break. The Romans feel the give and surge harder. Isn't yielding a sign of weakness? Not today. Today, yielding is a hinge. On the Roman right, Hasdrubal's heavy cavalry hits with compressed force. The Roman horse, fewer and cramped by their own infantry's shoulder, cannot properly maneuver. Men are unhorsed, formation dissolves, and the Carthaginian left rides down survivors. At the same time, the Numidians on Hannibal's right refuse a decisive clash. They feint, skirmish, whistle, and sting, then drift away. A small delay on one wing becomes a gift of minutes to the other. But what turns minutes into a death sentence? As the center continues to bow inward under Roman pressure, Hannibal's Gauls and Iberians give ground one calculated step at a time. The Roman infantry pours forward, compressed by its own numbers. The man in the front can fight. The man 2 ranks behind can only push. Dust rises, orders blur. The checkerboard becomes a plugged funnel. and the funnel points straight into the flexible mouth of Hannibal's line. Hasdrubal, having shattered the Roman right, does not chase glory off the field. He wheels his cavalry behind the Roman army. Almost at the same instant, Hannibal's African infantry, fresh, disciplined, and slightly refused until now, pivots inward on both flanks. The Carthaginian center has become a pocket. The African wings become the jaws. The Romans, still advancing, suddenly realize the battlefield has changed shape beneath their feet. And yet one more piece is missing. What seals the lid? The Numidians, done teasing, charge the Romang left and fix them in place. Hasdrubal's horse slams into the Roman rear. What was a frontal battle becomes a ring. Men look left, right, and behind and see only enemies. Officers try to form squares, but there is no room. The press of bodies, the very density meant to break an opposing line, now strangles the ability to fight at all. Blades need space. Courage needs breath. Both vanish when your own allies pin your elbows to your ribs. Livy paints the scene with tragic force. Valor without air. Polybius counts the pieces as the net tightens. Either way, a grim reality settles. The Romans cannot even lift the dead from under their feet. They slip on blood, shield rims catch on bones, standards vanish in the crush. Somewhere near the spear point of that deepest wedge, Consul Aemilius Paulus falls among his men. Varro escapes with a remnant, a choice more important than pride allows, for someone must carry news to Rome and carry responsibility for the next step. Why did the finest infantry in the world trap itself? The answer is not only Hannibal's genius. It is Rome's own strengths turned against Rome by context, timing, and a commander who choreographed space as a weapon. Consider the contrasts. Roman discipline versus Carthaginian adaptability. Roman depth versus Carthaginian breadth. Tradition versus innovation. The legions were built to push against a resisting mass and carve a gap. Hannibal denied them a stable front, then offered them the illusion of one. Each stepped forward into his elastic center-narrowed Roman room to maneuver. Each heartbeat bought Hasdrubal time to scythe the rear. Maneuver met mass, and maneuver wrote the geometry. Picture a mini-scene of iron and heat. Sunlight needles across bronze edges. Hooves drum like fists on a door. Sling stones hiss. Numidian pipes cut the noise with a reed-thin shriek. Dust cakes the tongue. The eagles of Rome glint and then tilt as ranks buckle, close, and lock again. Commands turn to noise. Then, like a door slamming in a crowded hall, the ring closes. Another moment. A Carthaginian African infantryman steps to the Roman flank, spear steady, breath measured. He is not faster than his foe. He is simply better placed. His thrust needs no flourish. A Romang tries to turn, but the pack blocks his pivot. His spearhead finds a seam beneath the shield. The line ripples, then clots tighter, always tighter. On the outer edge of the mass, Hasdrubal's horsemen skim the crowd like knives along a whetstone. They strike, pull away, and strike again. Where cavalry cannot penetrate, fear does. Men at the back dream of escape and find none. The perimeter becomes a wall. Did Hannibal win only with tactics, or did Roman politics ride into battle too? In the Senate, voices had clamored for a blow powerful enough to erase the shame after Trasimene. The choice of a vast army, the tight column, the hunger for quick certainty, these were not born on a dusty field alone. They were born in a city of marble and debate. The Romang machine could multiply force. Hannibal could multiply opportunities. At Cannae, those multipliers crossed. So how does Hannibal make Rome's mass undo itself? He builds a problem the legions cannot solve with their usual virtues. First, he draws them onto ground where cavalry can decide the margins and a steady wind favors confusion on one side. Second, he shapes his center as a deliberate elastic bulge to invite and channel the Roman thrust. Third, he preserves striking power on the flanks and, crucially, keeps discipline tight enough to pivot those African infantry inward at the exact moment the Roman advance peaks. Finally, he uses Hasdrubal's cavalry, not as a separate duel, but as a scythe to harvest the rear once the front is fully engaged. Decision leads to consequence. Consequence creates the next decision. And timing welds them into a single maneuver, the double envelopment. The immediate impact is slaughter on a scale the Republic has never endured. Ancient tallies differ, and sober historians warn against precise totals, yet the core truth holds. Tens of thousands of Romans fall. Senators die in armor. The aura of invincibility shatters. The political shock is electric. All eyes waver. Some southern cities shift toward Hannibal. Panic shakes Rome. And yet, here is the hinge that decides empires. Rome does not negotiate. It rebuilds. It learns. It changes the rules of the war. In the weeks after Cannae, you can feel the city harden. The Romans sell luxury to finance levies. They elevate discipline over fury. Fabius's earlier caution, mocked as cowardice, returns as doctrine. Delay becomes a weapon. They avoid pitched battle where Hannibal excels and make Italy itself the arena roads, granaries, alliances, attrition. The Republic refuses the logic of despair and chooses the economics of endurance. Is stubbornness a strategy? In Rome's hands, it becomes one. Cannae also forces Rome to rethink cavalry, scouting, and supply. The legions study the way space destroys density and begin to prize elasticity as much as mass. They refine command structures, sharpen junior initiative, and learn to coordinate with a light horse more seriously. On a deeper level, Rome learns to match Hannibal's art with its own. If he choreographed space, they would choreograph time. If he created decisive hours, they would create decisive years. The open loops close, one by one. The mysterious advantage in dust and space was never magic, only a tool in a larger design that magnified confusion right where the Roman press was tightest. The missing piece that sealed the lid was Hasdrubal's cavalry circling behind at the moment the Roman center was deepest in the pocket. The broader question, why did the best infantry trap itself, has its answer. Mass without maneuver becomes a vice when the field becomes three-dimensional. And did politics ride with the legions? Absolutely. The hunger for a crushing verdict fed the very geometry Hannibal offered. Yet Rome survives the day it almost died by matching Hannibal's brilliance with civic will. The Republic raises new armies, opens ranks to freedmen in emergencies, and promotes leaders who think with both caution and imagination. Among them is Publius Cornelius Scipio, who studies disaster like a manual. He watches how Hannibal stretches lines, steals initiative, and shapes an enemy's choices. Years later, Scipio will carry this knowledge to Africa, train his men to step aside from the rush, to bite at flanks, to use cavalry as a deciding blade. And at Zama, he will answer Cannae with an inversion built from its lessons. There is a final image worth keeping. Evening sliding over the Apulian plain, the dust beginning to drop, the shapes of men becoming men again, rather than a single heaving mass. Standards stand lonely where they fell. Survivors move like ghosts through a maze that wasn't there in the morning. The field looks innocent now, just ground, just air, but everyone who walked it knows the truth. Space can be sharpened like a sword. Empires do not live by victories alone. Sometimes they live because of how they lose and what they learn in the dust. That is the legacy of Cannae, a lesson carved into Roman memory, a warning about arrogance, a map for adaptation, and a promise that an enemy's masterpiece can become your textbook. What part of Hannibal's plan mattered most? The elastic center, the cavalry's timing, or Rome's own depth turned against itself? Tell me in the comments how you would rank them and why. If this story sharpened your sense of how battles are won in space and time, tap like and subscribe for weekly episodes on the reversals that forge Rome's destiny. Next, shall we follow Hannibal's shadow to the gates of Rome? or watch Scipio transform defeat into the blueprint for victory at Zama? Choose the path, and we will walk it together.